Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the Placer County Board of Supervisors Tuesday, July 9th, 2013 meeting. We will begin our meeting with a flag salute led by Supervisor Duran.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now ask the clerk to read the statement of meeting procedures.
Welcome to the Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting of Tuesday, July 9th, 2013. Agendas are available on the wall outside this meeting room. If you are here to speak on an issue not appearing on the agenda, you may do so at the public comment period. There's a 3-minute time limit per speaker. The board is not permitted to take action on items addressed under public comment. When you speak, clearly state your name and address for the record. All items on the agenda will be open for the public to address before final action is taken. There's a 3-minute time limit per speaker, which will be monitored by a timer on the podium. If there is a person speaking on behalf of a group with no other testimony from another member of the group, please identify yourself as such, and your time may be extended at the pleasure of the board. Keep in mind that the chairman has discretion of limiting the total discussion time on any item. If you are hearing impaired, we have listening devices available. It is requested that all pagers and cell phones be either turned off or put in the silent mode. Thank you for your participation and cooperation.
Thank you, Ms. Holman. Now is the time for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on any item that's not on the agenda, please come forward. Mr. Hill, did you have?
Good morning. My name is Eric Hill, and my address is 3700 Country Meadow Court, 95602. I'm here as representing the Senior Center, and I am chairman of the board of the Senior Center. And could you as you know, for the last 31 years, the county has supported the Senior Center. We've had over 1 million visits to the Senior Center by residents of Placer County, and you have given us the facility rent-free for those 31 years, and for that we thank you. We provide services to all the residents of Placer County. They come from Auburn, Rockland, Roseville, Forest Hill, Tahoe, even Grass Valley. This allows us, by you providing us the facility, it allows us to provide low rent to the facility for all the people all the services that we offer. As you know, we were given an eviction notice effective in 2015 to make way for the Costco. We support the Costco effort. We'd like to see that. We're not here, against that at all. 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with Lori Morris from the County Facilities Management, and she indicated that the county was not going to be able to do anything for us at all. And her suggestion was that we change the format of the Senior Center to be just a scheduling agency. We just schedule people to different facilities around the county. We don't feel that's acceptable. We'd like to see a central meeting place, a community center, a senior center that continue the same kind of activities that we've been doing. We manage a 12,000-foot facility with 2 part-time employees and over 100 volunteers. Ideally, we'd like to see a facility stay in DeWitt. Where Bell Gardens is right now would be perfect, because that's near all the senior facilities, and it's also near the Timberline development that's going to take place that is aimed at seniors. And it's also very easy access for the rest of the residents of Placer County. As you can understand, there's a lot of concern about this issue. If you read the comments about the articles in the paper, people are very concerned about this. So I just want to state that I feel very strongly that the county needs to come up with a solution to the fact that the senior center is going to get bulldozed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. We'll make sure that these get distributed to the board members.
I did have a
Oh,
brief question,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Hill. When this new information that you talked about, that you talked with Facility Services, what date did that?
That was about 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Schwab, please come forward.
Morning, everybody. My name is Ron Schwab, and this is Janice Wyckoff, and we're here on behalf of the Auburn Placer Performing Arts Center. We just really wanted to come out and inform you this morning about a big project that we're undertaking called Tear Down the Wall. It's a fundraising project. We're about to raise $300,000 to $500,000 to basically expand the theater, the State Theater downtown, from a 130-seat theater to just under 300 seats, probably around 285 seats. Part of that is also going to be to expand the stage to its original size, which right now it's about half of that. And we're going to build a green room underneath the stage area. So this is going to really allow us to really step up what we're able to provide to the community in terms of the quality of entertainment and the groups and so forth, which is really my drive. I'm on the board at APAC, and but I'm a volunteer, and I just want to go see great shows. So we're here to ask you for a couple of things this morning. One is to just get the word out, help us get the word out. It's a very aggressive fundraising drive that we're putting out. We're also here to recruit volunteers. On October 5th, we're going to have a great big event. It's going to be a street party in front of the State Theater, and we thought, what better way to promote our event than to get some supervisors on our volunteer staff that evening. So we've got lots of positions, everything from security to food servers and so forth. So we'd hope you'd consider doing that. We do have some brochures here that we can distribute to you so you have it in your hot hands. And we just thank you for your support and look forward to seeing each of you. We're also going to be putting in a revenue sharing request for those of you supervisors that have that. So now you'll know what it's all about. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I already have you on my calendar.
Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board on any item that's not on the agenda under public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back and ask for any supervisor committee reports. Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by the County Executive Department. The board will convene as the Placer County successor agency for item 21A. All items will be approved by a single roll call vote. Anyone may ask to address consent items prior to the board taking action, and the item may be moved for discussion. Are there any items from board members wish to pull for discussion? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Duran. Yes. Wygant. Euler. Montgomery.
Yes.
Holmes.
Yes, thank you. We'll move to our first department item, item 4, competitive bid, Public Works, Fleet, and Placer County Fire. Mr. Wood. Mr. Manning. Thanks, everybody. Morning.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes, Supervisors. My name is Brett Wood. I'm your Procurement Services Manager, and I'm here today with Mr. John Manning, also with the Procurement Division. We're here today on item 4A, which is a request to approve bid number 10271 to Hunt & Sons in the aggregate amount of $2.196 million for fuel and fuel-related products for Placer County. Mr. Manning will conduct the balance of the presentation, and we'll be happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Good morning. The Department of Public Works Fleet Services Division, the Placer County Fire Department, and the Department of Facility Services require annual blanket purchase orders for the purchase of bulk gasoline, diesel fuel, and related products. The department's most recent blanket purchase order agreements for these products expired on June 30th, 2013. The Procurement Services Division developed invitation for bid number 10271 for the various products requested by the county departments. The bid was distributed via the county's e-procurement platform, Public Purchase, and bid invitations were sent to 29 potential bidders. 23 of the bidders viewed the bid online. However, only one bid response was received from Hunt & Sons Incorporated, who is the county's most recent contract vendor. Procurement Services contacted the other bidders to find out why they did not respond. Most of the bidders indicated that they sell the products requested by the county departments. However, they did not feel that they would be competitive with the Northern California fuel vendors. The bid pricing offered by Hunt & Sons represents an overall increase of 2.83%, which was determined to be reasonable based on current market conditions. Procurement Services recommends to award bid number 10271 to Hunt & Sons Incorporated, and the resulting blanket purchase order will be effective for the period of July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2014. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about this.
Any questions from board members regarding this item? Anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for action. It's been moved and seconded to approve department item number 4, administrative services. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion is approved. Should I do that ag report?
It's going to be about a 5 to 10 minute item.
I don't want to delay our 9:15, our guest for the 9:15. We got a couple minutes, and I'm looking for something that we can approve quickly.
Drop down to 7B if you want to.
How about item 7B? Adult System of Care Contract Sierra Mental Wellness Group. Ms. Baumann, thanks for stepping up to the plate, to the lectern.
Thank you. Good morning. Maureen Baumann with the Adult System of Care. So item 7B actually requires 2 actions on your part. We're requesting that sorry,
That's all right.
I was going to take them 2 at a time. This agreement will provide activities to provide mental health services. There are 2 actions. The first is to cancel the request for proposal, number 10247, for various mental health services, and the second is to approve an agreement with Sierra Mental Wellness Group. You have 2 items with Sierra Mental Wellness Group. This is the first. Richard Connect will take up the second one shortly on your agenda. So this is to provide 5150 mandated crisis services for people that are deemed to be a danger to themselves, danger to others, or gravely disabled. This year, Placer County will be responsible to do about 2,600 crisis assessments in the county. The agreement will provide activities related to the provision of mental health crisis services in both Western and Eastern Placer County. Sierra Mental Wellness Group provides mental health crisis response in the Eastern County 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then provides after-hours, weekend, and holiday coverage in the Western Placer County. The agreement supports an after-hours crisis response staff member to be on-site at the Sutter Roseville Medical Center, which is where 71% of the crisis responses do occur in this side of the county. This agreement is proposed to be 9% over the last year's contract. We determined that this is reasonable. It's related to an increase in staff because of an anticipated increase of services, as well as an increase in liability coverage for this particular type of service. So we have reviewed this contract and have deemed it to be fiscally and programmatically solid and probably the best way to provide this particular service. It's funded with $318,000 of federal and state funding and requires $240,000 of county general funds. This expenditure is included in the department's 13-14 proposed budget. With that, I'd recommend approval, but we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Duran, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a clarification. Is this our RFP number 10247, is this the request for proposal on which the Sierra Mental Wellness Group is based, or is it something entirely different?
Sorry.
had trouble finding my space in my talk. So the request for proposal, similar to the one you just heard, only had one respondent. It was only the incumbent, and so procurement has recommended that we go ahead and negotiate a contract with the incumbent for this current fiscal year. We do another RFP and release it during the year to be awarded in 14-15. Again, reviewing why people didn't respond and perhaps adding some clarity into the RFP when it's resubmitted out to the public.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other board items? Any more board questions? Anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? So we're going to be asked for item 7B. Number 1 is to cancel the request for proposals. And then item 2 is to approve agreement with Sierra Mental Wellness Group for emergency psychiatric crisis services. Is there any motion? It's been moved and seconded to approve, cancel the request for proposals for various mental health services, and to approve agreement with Sierra Mental Wellness Group for emergency psychiatric crisis services. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item is moved. Thank you. And now, we will move to our 9:15 timed item. Placer County Water Agency presentation of proposed changes to water rates presented by Placer County Water Agency. Mr.
Mr.
Maish.
Chairman, good morning, members of the board, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Heiner Maish, Director of Strategic Affairs for Placer County Water Agency. As I suspect you all know, PCWA is proposing to have its first rate increase in 5 years in our Zone 1 water system. Principally, it's because our contract with PG&E has expired, and under the new contract, we're paying a lot more for our source water supply, but we also have increased costs of our own as well. And I'd like to take you through our presentation and explain the details. So first, Zone 1 is a boundary area. It's also a financial entity. We purchased this system from PG&E in 1968, and along with the purchase of the system came the water supply contract that's the subject of our discussion today. We're going to go over our revenue requirements, the proposed changes in rates, and the process, and the next steps for you today. So Zone 1 goes from Upper Auburn, includes Bowman, down to the northern part of Granite Bay, and all the way out to Lincoln, and incorporates the town of Loomis and Rockland as well. The increase that we're talking about today, it generates from two sources. First of all, the PG&E water supply contract that we entered into in 1968. PG&E wanted very much to be out of the water business back then. Anyway, for a variety of reasons, but an indication of how badly they wanted to be out of the business is that we were able to negotiate a very favorable agreement on the water supply contract, and that was that the rates would remain unchanged for the entire period of the contract, which ran until 2013, which was concurrent with their current FERC license for the Drum Spalding project. So the water supply from PG&E for Zone 1 comes from PG&E's hydroelectric project, the Drum Spalding project, and we've been paying about $200,000 a year for the water supply for the entire 45 years of the contract, which was a pretty good deal for PCWA. But now the contract has expired, and PG&E's costs have gone up substantially. Their operating costs have gone up. In addition, they've just gone through their relicensing, or they're going through their relicensing, so they have substantial increased costs in addition to just the sort of routine increases. And so we had a rather tough bargaining session and came to an agreement that the cost of the water would go up to from $200,000 currently to $3 million a year beginning the first of next year, and $4 million a year beginning the year after, and then increased by the rate of inflation thereafter. In addition, PCWA has not had a rate increase since 2009, and over these 5 years, our costs have increased, and we propose to add $1 million to the $3.8 million of increased costs of PG&E. So the total revenue requirement for this project, or for our rate increase, is $4.8 million a year. Those costs are going to be spread totally evenly over all classes and types of customers. So raw water customers, treated water customers, businesses, residential are all seeing identical percent rate increases with this. The rate increase is going to be spread over 2 years. The bulk of it in the first year, beginning January of 2014, and then another rate increase in 2015. And then we are going to also institute an inflation adjustment annually for a period of 4 years, beginning in 2015 through 18. This is sort of a breakdown of treated water. That one's not going to work. Battery. Brought my own. Treated water, these are our current annual revenues. We have fixed charges, we have renewal and replacement charges, and commodity charges that add up to $33.8 million a year. This was our annual revenue in 2012. Raw water, we have a capital facilities charge and a commodity charge, $2.2 million total. Annual revenue from water sales is about $36 million a year. These are the proposed increases in 14 and 15. We're increasing the fixed charges slightly more than the commodity charges. We think that helps our customers deal with this a little bit better. The rate increase is 9.1% in 2014, an additional 3.7% in 2015. Same exact percent increases in the raw water. The total revenue estimated from these rate increases will be just under $4.8 million. This is a history of rate increases. Put some of this into perspective. In the period from 2005 to 2008, we had some fairly steep rate increases. We had some major challenges in our system. Renewal and replacement got to be a really big issue for us. We had failing systems up in our Zone 3 system that is a secondary water supply to Zone 1, a bunch of problems. Anyway, we instituted a renewal and replacement charge into our system so that we could begin recovering in rates an adequate amount of money to replace the system over time as we move forward. We've not had a rate increase for 5 years. These are the two proposed rate increases. And if you were to levelize over the period, it would be just over 2% per year on a levelized basis. We tried to, I've got several slides here just trying to give people a good feel for what this means to the average customer. So this is residential rates. We've got these blocks here. So 9 units a month is what our average, the median rather, winter use is in our system. And then in the summer use, our median use is about 26 units a month. The 20th percentile is down here at 12. The 80th percentile is at 45. This is our current rate structure of 7 tiers. And just to give a feel for how the costs are spread, where the customers lie in terms of their use on the chart. A little different way of looking at it, we took those same tiers and showed by month. So you can see everybody hits the first tier every month. Most people hit the second tier every month. And then, of course, in the summer months, you get this type of a classic M&I distribution where people go into the third and fourth tiers. Some people use a lot of water and get up higher. And here's another way of looking at it. This is the existing total cost, so that median winter use is going to go from $38.95 to $44.88 per month. The median summer use is going to go from $64 to $72 a month. And the high water users are going to be up here north of $100 a month. Again, this is another way of looking at the same information. These are the actual amounts of increase for those same customer classes on a monthly basis. So the median winter customer is going to see $5.93 a month, 20 cents a day. The median summer customer is going to see $8.36 a month, 28 cents a day. Nominally, this is about a 25-cent a day rate increase on an annual average basis. We did do some comparison to some of our neighbors. It's not exactly easy to do comparison to our neighbors because different jurisdictions have different methods of funding. Nevada Irrigation, for example, has $26 million in operating expenses with 9.9 or 39% of it coming from their property tax revenue. So that works out good for them. El Dorado Irrigation District in San Juan also have substantial amounts of property tax revenue. PCWA does not have property tax revenue as part of its water component. And so so these rates are normalized where we've taken the property tax revenue and included it in, so to do a fair comparison. Nevada Irrigation District, here's Placer County Water Agency, they're all treated water rates. The lowest one is City of Roseville. If you want to have cheap water rates, the way you do it is you have a big lake, you have one pipe to one water treatment plant and a compact service area. That's as good as you can do. We're never going to beat City of Roseville in their rates. Anyway, but PCWA, as you can see, is relatively competitive.
I know the big lake you mentioned is Folsom.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, just one, for anybody out there that didn't understand.
Here's our untreated rates, half a miner's inch, 1 miner's inch, 3 miner's inch, again, monthly. Most of this is commodity charge. We have a very small fraction, which is a capital facility fee in our irrigation rates. They're going up by the same percentage. The proposed inflation rate, we are going to use the Consumer Price Index, CPI-U, and if you ask me any questions about it, I won't know because I didn't ask Joe Parker to come today. But anyway, it's a broad measure of Western United States urban users. It tends to smooth out the fluctuations, and the CPI increase will start January of 2015. The 218 process, we are in the middle of this right now. Water rates by a public utility are required to go through 218 notification and a 218 process. First of all, it does allow us to include inflation, 218 does. It allows us to institute rates that cover a 5-year period. We're taking advantage of those. We haven't done that in the past. We have a public hearing set for August 8th at 2 p.m. at Placer County Water Agency, and everyone is invited to attend. The procedural notifications have to be mailed out 45 days in advance, and if we get a written majority of protests, which would be 50% plus 1, we are legally prevented from instituting the proposed rate increases. And we've had 12 letters of protest so far. I should have covered this a little bit better, saved it to the end. PG&E is increasing their rates rather dramatically, and this is a classic example of where we expect most of the money that we're going to be paying, most of the additional money we're going to be paying to PG&E is to go into reliability improvements on their canal system. 2011, the PG&E system, which starts all the way up in Spalding and covers many, many miles, all the way down to the upper end of Folsom Lake. This is the system that has to be maintained through a combination of the energy and water sales. And back in 2011, we saw a section of the Bear River Canal just below Rollins Reservoir fail. We got extremely lucky that we had very cool and wet conditions during the period of the recovery, and through our systems, being able to pump water out of the American River, our ability to divert water through our Zone 3 system, which fortunately was all put back together because of our increase in our renewal and replacement charges that went into the repairs, we were able to get through this with relatively minor impacts. But nevertheless, it was quite a challenging time for us. That cost PG&E $14 million to repair this facility. And that's the end of the slideshow. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Yes, sir. Oh, Supervisor Yule.
So, Einer, both of our boards are looking forward to the revenue associated with our renegotiated long-term agreement. Can you give us any sense of where you think your board is looking at directing those revenues? Has your board communicated that yet? And can you give us a sense of what kinds of rate increases? Is that revenue projected to have any impact on limiting the need for future rate increases? You've already built in the CPI here to continue to ratchet them up. What I'm wondering is there any sense of where things might otherwise be if it weren't for the new revenue that's coming forward?
Good question. That happens to be the number one question, by the way, just in case you want to. First of all, you're exactly right. The policy direction by the board at this point is that the water system needs to stand on its own 2 feet, and this kind of an increase is not something that we want to try to, in the immediate short term, cover in some way with the volatile revenues from the Middle Fork project. And so this is moving completely independently of the fact that there are, we hope, some substantial revenues from the Middle Fork project coming in future years. The Middle Fork project, our board has adopted a policy on where those revenues are to be directed in the future. The challenge for our board is that we are, as you are, a county-wide organization, but within the county there are a number of different water purveyors, and we are one of them. And so we can't necessarily take county-wide resources, revenue, and direct it all to just our water system. We've got to find a way of being equitable about that, and the policy covers that. However, we are one of the largest water systems in the county, and certainly we anticipate some of that revenue is going to be able to flow to Zone 1. And it would be really nice if we could do that in a way that had the effect of limiting future rate increases. But that's my guess as to where it's going to go. We've had no policy discussion directly on that topic yet.
Okay, thank you.
So it'd probably be 2018 before any substantial revenues come in that would be available for that anyhow. So that's why it's out 5 years.
Yes.
Is that my understanding? Okay.
Also true. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
For the help.
No charge. Anyone else, anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item, or any questions for Mr. Maish? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. Well received. We understand. We'll now move to our 9:30 timed item, the Placer County Audit Committee Annual Report. Mr. Wayne Nader.
Good morning. Chairman Holmes, board members. I'm here to give you your annual report from the Audit Committee, and it's an honor and a privilege to serve on this committee with two of your board members, Supervisors Holm and Durant. I'd like to take a moment just to introduce some of the audit folks that are here. Andy Siss, the Auditor Controller, and Nicole Howard, the Assistant Auditor and Controller. And also I asked Rick to join us today too. Rick Green is a partner with Macias and Genty and O'Connell, our external auditors. And so I know that from my past reports to you that you, I know this may seem a little odd because it doesn't necessarily stir up a lot of interest to a lot of people, but I do have a passion for the audit function. Again, from my financial background, I understand the importance of verifying and having objective verification of what your expectations are. I think I've used the term before with you folks, inspect what you expect. Also, there's another term that's been applied to something else, but I feel it fits here, is trust but verify. And it's not that you necessarily expect issues, but I think it gives a greater assurance to the public and to obviously the electeds that policies and financial information are being done in a prudent manner. Obviously, tax dollars are a very precious commodity, and we want to make sure that they're being used in the most efficient way possible. I would like to thank the CEO and the staff for being supportive of, there were some changes in the audit department. Obviously, as Andy moved up to the senior level there, and Nicole moved up to his former spot. We had some openings that needed to be filled. And I know that each opening is looked at very carefully before it's filled, so I just want to thank the CEO for the support of replacing those positions. Because and again, I know this has been a reoccurring theme of mine over the last couple of years, but as the county becomes obviously trying to be as efficient as they can, and they're cutting staff back, there's the opportunity for things to maybe be missed along the way, just because obviously people are being maybe stressed in positions and not able to follow through on policies or approvals in the way that you would normally want to see. And so I think it's important to have that audit function going on, and obviously staffing is important to make sure that that's done. Obviously, you had about a page-and-a-half report. I hope you had a chance to kind of take a look at that. It gave you a real quick overview of what's going on, both from the internal audits and external audits that are being done. It was a pretty busy year, especially as obviously they were trying to staff up for dealing with internal audits. I think if you look at the report, there was quite a long list of things that they accomplished this last year. As you know, there's been a number of your department heads running off towards retirement, and so that initiates an audit at those times. And the TOT tax, the transit occupational tax, that's important to monitor because, as you know, there's an opportunity for some of those companies that are out there or facilities that may not be watching very carefully how they take those dollars in for the county. And so, but it is a pretty arduous process to go through those TOTs. So, again, staffing is important for that. And this last year, there was something that was a little bit unique, is that they were asked to come in and audit Newcastle Fire District, and Andy handled that himself to make sure so that obviously there's a very sensitive issue going on in Newcastle about that. So it was good that the auditor could step up and help add some credibility to the process. So that obviously takes time away from their other functions. So I appreciate that effort there. I'd also, again, one of the reasons I asked Rick to be here is as the public member, I think I'm obviously not saying that the other two members are not objective and don't have a bias, but I think as a public member, I obviously step back and look at the picture a little bit differently because I'm not as close to it as maybe the others. And again, first of all, I appreciate the diligent efforts that the audit staff does to make sure that everything is handled in an appropriate fashion at the county, again, both policies and financial reporting. But that's also backed up by our external auditors as well. And I just want to assure you, from my perspective, they're doing an outstanding job. And I want to give Rick credit as the manager and partner of that to recognize that. And they're also helping us to kind of keep an eye out for issues that are going to come up in the future. And one that is going to have some really big repercussions, maybe not so much to Placer County, but certainly municipalities, is the pension issue. And I think there's always been a real question about what's the real impact of that. Well, there's a new accounting policy that's coming into place starting in 2015, and so there's some time to get prepared for this, that is really going to truly show the picture of the liability that these municipalities have for their pensions, which is a good thing. You'll see it on page 11 if you haven't had a chance to read it in your report that our external auditors put together for you. Again, it's just a heads up to be prepared. I don't know that necessarily Placer County has an issue, but I know that there are municipalities in California that are going to have some real difficulty when that comes about. So, I don't have anything else. I want to keep my comments brief. Obviously, we have the experts here. So if you have any questions, if you've noticed anything in the reports that cause any concerns or leave questions in your mind, please feel free to ask them, and I'll be glad to try to answer
Questions for
as
Mr.
well.
Nader at this time? Supervisor Montgomery.
I have one, and I'm not sure, Wayne, if this is for you or if it's for Andy, but on the transient occupancy tax audit, that audits merely the people we know who are reporting to us or who should be reporting to us. It doesn't get to the question, as I understand it, of folks like VRBO who may not be reporting transient occupancy tax at all. Is that correct?
We are always out there looking for people that are not paying the taxes. We work closely with admin services to try to identify those that are not paying the taxes. But really the subject of our, really the purpose of our audit is going out and auditing the current operators to make sure they're complying. But many times when we go out and audit those operators, they will give us information that leads us to people that may not be paying the transient occupancy tax.
And as a just sort of a general statement, what was your estimation of the compliance of the folks that we know are TOT collectors?
Well, so far we've just started that on the west slope. We haven't made our way up to the east slope where most of the operators are, as you know. So we're just in the west slope. I think we've done about 10 to 12 operators. We haven't finished our report. We're still in the middle of the audits, and we're finding the majority of the people are complying in the west slope, but again, there are not that many operators. I think we have 30 total operators in the west slope compared to the east slope, which we're have close to 200 operators, if I remember right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments? Mr. Sis?
Yeah, there was some additional things I wanted to add. First I want to thank, Wayne for his comments. And we are at the 5-year anniversary of having our audit committee. And I just want to emphasize again, there are 3 main players responsible for the quality of financial reporting. It's the independent auditors, such as Rick, the external auditor, and Nicole, who leads our internal audit shop. There's people like me that are financial managers. And Janine, of course, and David Bosch, and our finance committee members. But then really the ultimate responsibility rests with the board of supervisors. Really, it is the board as the ultimate monitor of the financial reporting process. The audit committee really is a practical means for the board to provide that much-needed independent review and oversight of the county's financial reporting processes, internal controls, and also oversight of our independent auditors. Again, I applaud our board for setting up this audit committee. And it's refreshing when I go out and talk to my colleagues that they want to model their audit committees after us. I'll end it just a few thank yous. First to Nicole Howard for leading the internal audit division in the county. Second to David for his support and leadership. Third to our department heads. Our department heads are the ones that are the auditees. And they're the ones that have to listen to the findings that come as a result of the audit, but they have to implement a corrective action plan. And if you noted in our single audit report, I think the majority of our recommendations are implemented and they're done in a timely fashion. And it's nice to see those being corrected in subsequent audit reports. But last, I want to thank the audit committee members. First, Wayne Nader for his 5 years of public service on the audit committee. And then to really our 2 board members, Jim has been on the audit committee for 5 years, and Jack Durant 2.5 years. And in my opinion, it's the most important committee you serve on. So with that, I would open up to any other questions that you have.
Good job. Supervisor Durant.
No, I just have a couple of comments, and I do want to thank Andy and all the other folks that are participating on the audit committee. Aside from the way that we spend our money, the next most important way to account for it is through auditing. And believe me, there's nothing sexy. Having done being responsible for my professional clients, I do numerous audits every year. And there's nothing sexy about matching up signatures to a receipt. There's nothing exciting about it. Let me tell you something, but it is a necessary thing that you need to do in order to make sure that all of your money is accounted for. As a businessman myself, I have to, I have my own business that I have to take care of in making sure that, things are done correctly. It is a privilege to be on this committee. It's a privilege to work with such good-natured, understanding people that are knowledgeable in how to conduct, different types of audit models or agreed-upon procedures, the different types of things that they do. It's really important, and I'm very happy and satisfied that we're continuing to do this and be responsible and accountable. So.
Thank you. I, too, appreciate the work the audit committee does. Nicole Howard gives a new perspective on sharpening pencils. Very clear presentations about the work that you do. It's very well received, and we appreciate it. Rick, you as well, showing up at our meetings and giving us a little sense of comfort that there's some other eyes looking at this. And Wayne, your leadership, you said it well. You're a different set of eyes. With your background, I think you're the right guy to be on this audit committee, and that's why we put you as the chair. So, so we appreciate your service as well. Any other comments? Anyone in the audience want to make any comments regarding the audit committee? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. It's time for our 9:45 timed item, the treasurer tax collector processing fees for Empower Placer and Empower Placer administrative actions. Ms. Windishausen, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. There are a couple of action items here for you today, or a number of action items here for you today. The first of which has to do with a processing fee for Empower applications, and that requires that you hold a public hearing and then consider the action. So, first of all, I want to emphasize that this is a processing fee, not an application fee, and it would be charged on applications which have been approved and funded. There's a number of reasons logistically that it makes sense to do it that way. We do abide by the Truth in Lending Act requirements, and there is a 3-day right of rescission, and if someone decides to rescind, any application fee needs to be refunded. So that's one reason, but from just a logistics standpoint and cost to administer, taking an application fee, and then any potential refunds, let alone someone having to put money on the line, not knowing whether they're going to get approved or not. So it is a processing fee. A fee study has been conducted, and it's been concluded that $500 per residential application and $1,300 per commercial application would cover partial costs, because part of the costs are also recovered through a portion of the interest on the assessment. So what this does is it helps to accelerate the cost recovery by collecting some of the fee up front. It also gives us more flexibility in terms of responding to the market related to our interest rate and making adjustments in our interest rate. And it is, we estimated that it takes about 8.5 hours to process a residential application and about 22 hours for a commercial. The bulk of the revenue would come from the residential applications, mainly just because of the volume difference between commercial and residential. And so this is a slide that you saw at your last board meeting, and the column to the far right has been added to show what the cost recovery does or what the fee does in terms of accelerating the cost recovery. With that, I would answer any questions that you have about the actions related to the fee. Again, it is a public hearing, and there are 2 actions should you decide to adopt the fee. One is the resolution, and the other are amendments to the program report, which are required under state law that we maintain the program report that shows our financing plan.
All right, this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing and ask for board comments. Supervisor Duran?
Yes, Janine, thank you for bringing this forward. What kind of things did the study look at in determining what the fees were between residential and commercial?
I'm sorry, what kind of
factors did they did they look at other jurisdictions to determine what the fee, how you got to the fee?
No, we did not. In determining this fee, we did not look at other jurisdictions. We looked at what our cost was and cost recovery factors. Exhibit B in your packet shows basically a time and motion study on how we arrived at that fee. We do have information on fees charged by other programs, and there'll be a slide later on
Okay.
regarding that. But we didn't use it in terms of a consideration in establishing our fee.
Okay. As far as the commercial 1,500 fee, can they roll that into a loan, or
Yes.
they can't?
Yes. And that's another reason logistically making for a processing fee as opposed to an application fee. It can be included in the financed amount.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Euler.
Just two questions. Actually, first, Janine, just a comment. Your prior slide, and I hate to harp on this point, but I just want to make sure that we are clear. The bottom bullet in each of the residential and commercial, where you write estimate of 5 applications per week, we should read that to mean 5 loans funded per week as opposed to applications, right? Because you're only
The
generating
fee
revenue.
study was based on what it takes to process an application, and that's why the terminology is, but yes, it is precisely, it is based on applying that fee to applications that are approved and funded.
Okay. So on the residential side, a run rate of 5 loans funded per week is driven by how many applications actually received? Do you know what we're anticipating the actual application volume to be?
We anticipate that based on our prior experience and also based on the recent survey that we did at your request. And I would say that it's at least double that amount, double 5 applications a week.
Yeah, I think, I hope it would be substantially over that. I think we need to, I'd be interested in seeing some good tracking of that data.
Absolutely.
The program kicks off, just to make sure, because you're looking at a cost recovery 4 years out at total cost recovery in either scenario, year 5 when you actually break even on cost recovery. And I think it'll be very important for us to keep our eyes on how these numbers are tracking.
Absolutely. We will be tracking this along with other program statistics, including budget and cost information, and reporting that regularly directly to the board in a written format.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Alrighty, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for action on item. First, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll bring it back for action on item 3A2, the adoption of resolution and program report amendments authorizing a processing fee of $1,300 per commercial project and $500 per residential project.
So with the direction just discussed with regards to that.
Been moved and second to move the item. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion is passed. We'll move to item 3B, Empower Administrative Action.
These actions have to do with the commercial side of the program. And then also, we have compiled responses to questions that the board asked at the last meeting. And so on the commercial program, we have done some things in order to try to increase the uptake and streamline the processing. But before I jump into that, I would like to go to number 4 to give you some of the information that you requested so you have benefit of that when you're considering the other actions. We have financed 10 projects, and the average application amount for commercial is $116,000. Because there were just 10, we went ahead and listed the amounts of each of those. The total is $4.67 million, and those are applications. I'm sorry, those are applications received. We've actually funded about 5 of those, and the rest are still pending processing. On the residential side, we have received 144 applications before the program was suspended, and based on those applications received, the average was $32,479. Now, when you extract, there were a handful, about a dozen applications that either were withdrawn or denied. The average actually goes up by about $2,000. So we categorized the amounts of those applications. Again, these are residential applications. The bulk of them are in that $30,000 to $50,000 range, but as you can see, we have a number of sizable applications. And one of the things that you'll see when we get to the comparative data with other programs is that we have a much larger average application amount than other programs in the state. There was also a question about the location of where the applications are. So they are spread pretty uniformly across the county, except for the Tahoe area. And that takes a special effort for us to get into the Tahoe area. We had started to do that during that 14 weeks, and we anticipate having a focus on that Tahoe area so that we can get the participation level comparable to where it is in the rest of the county. There was a question about default information. Now, we make a differentiation between delinquency and default. Delinquency is if they don't pay on the regularly scheduled property tax date. If that delinquency stays in effect after the end of the fiscal year, it becomes defaulted. So in Placer, we have not had any defaults. Sonoma did not parse all of their information out between delinquent and default, so they have had very few actual defaults. This is based on their delinquency rate from as of this last April property tax collection period, and it is a cumulative number for the entire time that they've had their program in operation since 2009. And then Riverside County, it's too soon to tell. Their program has been up and running only 18 months, so they've not had an opportunity to get all these assessments onto the property tax roll and into that cycle. But they are looking at and they won't have their information on what is on the roll, what has been on the roll this last year for about another week. But they indicated that it was a very small number, probably about a half a dozen is what they indicated to us verbally. I apologize. There's a lot of data here, and it's a little small, but you do have a copy, or you should have a hard copy there. This is comparative information that's been compiled through a number of sources. We received information directly from Sonoma and Riverside County on their programs. They had also collected data on other programs, and then we did contact representatives for the California First and the San Francisco and the LA programs. A couple of things I'd like to focus on. The California First program, the San Francisco and the LA currently do not have residential. They have suspended those programs, or I shouldn't say suspended, they never activated those programs because of the FHFA situation. The interest rate, where's my little red dot? There it is. Well, okay. I think I'm running low on batteries here. Our interest rate is the lowest in the state, and then our fees are actually among the lowest when you compare our fee to what our average application amount is. These fees, the percentage, where it says percentage of fees to assessment, it's based on an $18,000 assessment because that was the average in Western Riverside, and that's where data had been compiled. So we just made it uniform there. So our rate would be half to two-thirds that amount based on our average application amount. And then you can see a little further down our average application amount compared to the other programs. So in addition to application fees and interest rates, some of the other programs charge other fees. There are also fees which are incidental. In other words, we're not charging those directly as a result of the program, but for example, recording fees. Everybody has to pay recording fees regardless of what program you're in. So there are those types of fees. One program has a fee that they charge a contractor, and in our conversations with contractors, they've indicated that those fees get passed on to the property owner. We did conduct a survey. We have a database of about 700 contractors that have had contact with our program over the years. So we selected contractors in order to get a cross-section in a survey. We also went to the Yellow Pages and identified contractors that had not had contact with our program. So again, we could get some representation. Again, it is a cross-section of different types of retrofit, including energy efficiency and generation, and the companies varied across the board from very small to larger companies. This was done by phone in order to try to get a high participation rate. We had a contractor who said that we only had one contractor who said, I don't want to answer the questions, I don't have time. We had two that have their own in-house financing that they offer and indicated that they don't utilize PACE, and then didn't participate further in the survey. And we had a couple that we just were not able to make a hard contact to. So this is a list of those. It's actually 28 contractors. So we started out, the staff members who conducted the survey had a script, and we started out by first collecting that data on each contractor to get an idea and make sure that we had a cross-section. We ask them if they do other types of financing and what types. And so the number there indicates, for example, under solar lease, 13 said that they utilize solar leases. We did get a lot of comments that they wanted other options in addition to solar leases. Then 23 said that they had other sources of financing, for example, banks, that type of thing. So then we asked them a couple of questions about how likely they were to use the Empower program, and actually I was surprised by the positive response, the level of positive response that we received. So 21 of them said that they were very likely to use it, and 3 said likely. Then we asked them if we added the processing fee, how likely would they be to offer. And we did have a few, it trailed down, but we still maintained 18 at being very likely to offer the financing. We asked them also if they did new construction. This was to let us know whether that was a component that we should add, trying to get an indication if there was volume there. So we had a number that did not do any work on new construction. That's why those numbers dropped down. Those that did indicated that predominantly that they were likely to be interested in the financing. We asked them what they liked most about the program, and we got a variety of responses. Again, you have this in your packet, so I'm not going to go through line by line. And then we asked them what we could do to make the program better. I can tell you that over the last months and in recent weeks, we've done a number of things that address some of the concerns. They're ordered here on the most predominant concerns. We've all but eliminated any waiting periods that were previously required, and that also, by default, reduces the amount of paperwork and the overall processing time. We have eliminated the direct lender consent on residential. And so, again, we have addressed most of these concerns even prior to getting these survey results. We asked them if they had experience with other programs in the state, and some of them did, and here are the responses that we received, and we categorized them as to positive and negative, again, to see if there's anything that we can learn to make our program better and more responsive. And then from a marketing standpoint, we took the opportunity to ask them if they would like to get additional information, and they all indicated that they would. We indicated to them that a compilation of the results would be shared with the Board of Supervisors, and did they have anything to add? And this is a compilation of those responses, and of course some indicated they didn't have anything more to add, but the following two slides show the responses that we got. So it was overwhelmingly positive. We also aggregated some of the market information that we're aware of for your information. PG&E is going through a PUC process right now to have rate approvals. These are aggregated amounts, so any one ratepayer is not necessarily going to receive the full burden of these amounts. But I can tell you that electric rates are being considered by the PUC based on PG&E's rate request to increase by 6.4% in 2014 and 7.8% in 2015, and bundled gas rates on commercial property is being considered to be for an increase of 11.7% in 2014 and 5.7% in 2015. PG&E has also been successful in getting the PUC to agree to defer their greenhouse gas surcharge until the proceedings on that issue have concluded, and so that defers those charges for approximately 12 months whenever those proceedings conclude, and that will add another 5 to 10%. PG&E currently is just launching right now incentives on HVAC systems, and then they have a substantial portion of a statewide portfolio of $1 billion in incentives for energy efficiency measures, and then planning for the 14-15 portfolio. Those indications are that portfolio in terms of efficiency incentives will be even larger. Roseville Electric has also just launched an efficiency incentive for evaporative pre-coolers of $600 per kilowatt. Another consideration is that due to the economy, the HVAC installers and companies, the large companies in particular, track installations, and they know that only about 20 to 50% of replacements have occurred over the last couple of years. There's a lot of deferred maintenance due to the economy, and so as the economy turns around, it's expected that the demand for HVAC replacement will be rather robust. We are drawing closer and closer to some of the implementation timelines on AB 32 requirements. I'm sure all of you are familiar with AB 32. And then AB 1103 just took effect in January, and that requires that there be energy efficiency benchmarking on all non-residential properties. As a part of a real estate transaction, that benchmarking must be disclosed. So that's what the trigger point is real estate transaction. The California Solar Initiative, those incentives are winding down unless there are new initiatives put forth in that program. They have recently added solar thermal hot water, but that's a pretty small component of that program. It's really just a mention there, if you will. So there are a couple of actions related to the SPARKS or Streamlined Project Application Review and Certification System. And let me tell you what the genesis of that was. We were looking for ways to increase the uptake of commercial projects and to streamline the process. One of the places that applications really got waylaid is in the required lender consent. Lenders are required on commercial properties to consent to the borrower's participation, and often it was kind of like, and through no fault of the lenders, quite frankly, but it was like the applications went into a black hole. So we needed to do a better job of putting a focus on these applications, explaining what they were, explaining what we were trying to accomplish, and how we were trying to work with a property owner. And so we came up with a way to streamline and standardize things that would allow the banks in their approval process to rely on established third-party standards and criteria versus, as actually one of our lenders put it, a crayon on the back of an envelope. We worked with a consultant. We had preliminary discussions with a consultant. They came up with some of these ideas and that they shared with us, and then based on that, we entered into a contract with them in order to conduct focus groups with lenders, property managers, and real estate representatives, as well as contractors. And then we went, so we presented this idea of streamlining, and then based on their feedback, we went back and refined the concept. Overall, we had a very, very positive response to the concept. I want to mention that in hiring Rockwood Consulting, there was money in the Empower budget, and we utilized salary savings. We had another contract that was very, very large that was included in the budget. However, that contract was never executed, and there was not a foreseeable plan to execute that contract. So that's where the funding came for that consultant. So what we came up with and what the banks found palatable was that we standardized the way that savings would be calculated, that these savings would be part of an ASHRAE level 2 or 3 or other professionally recognized audit, and that the modeling would be based on IRS approved software, and that there would be independent third-party verification of the savings. The MIST program that's actually run by RCRC has similar criteria. So to a certain extent, this is patterned after that, and they had substantial uptake. They have financed millions and millions of dollars. Actually, I think it's around $40 million in that program of retrofits based on using these types of criteria. So we know that it's not onerous for contractors, and we also got that feedback from the contractors. Then we looked for ways that the lenders might participate, and essentially what we came up with was an opportunity for them to participate in the financing. So it's an opportunity for them to participate in municipal quality investment at a competitive rate. They're currently receiving very, very low rates on their investment portfolios, and so this was proved to be very, very attractive. So to the extent that they participate in the program by reviewing applications in good faith, and to the extent that applications are then approved, and I want to emphasize that not only do we want their consent and their review because of the contractual requirements in a commercial lending agreement, but we know that the banks have information on their borrowers that we otherwise cannot obtain. And so it's very helpful for us to have the benefit of that information, not directly, but by the course of the bank making an ultimate approval or denial of the application. So this proved to be very, very attractive for a number of the lenders. We concentrated on local financial institutions. They're regulated by the state and not by federal agencies, and we also find that they have a considerable market share when it comes to local businesses and lending on local businesses. So the other part of this is that we've worked with County Council and with outside bond counsel to come up with an agreement for participating lenders, for lenders who want to participate with us in this program. And so that is also one of the action items, is a program report amendment to allow utilization of that agreement, to authorize the treasurer to execute those agreements subject to final review and approval by County Council. Separate and apart from the Sparks elements of the program, and I also want to mention that not every commercial application will go through this. We have had commercial applications where the property is owned free and clear, so they would not necessarily be subject to these requirements or to this program. In July of 2011, the board took action to change the interest rate. Previously, the interest rate was 7.25%. 3.75% went to cost recovery, and 3.5% went to the investor. At this time, it's a treasury investment, but then ultimately whoever purchased the municipal bonds. We were looking for ways to lower the interest rate, and what we came up with is basically for the investor what we call a step-up fixed income instrument, where the interest rate starts out low and it steps up. It's not adjustable in terms of being indexed to something else, but it steps up very specifically. And then the cost recovery then is higher in the future years. So we ended up, the result was that the cost to the property owner for the financing was reduced. Actually, the yield to maturity for the investor was increased, and our cost recovery was accelerated. And so in order to affect existing contracts, assessment contracts that were done on the prior interest rate going forward, we need to get the board's approval by resolution to amend those contracts. And so that's what this action is to allow those projects to go forward at this interest rate. With that, I can take any questions that the board might have. I do want to say that there is a broad effort related to this program, and has been over the years, with various aspects of administering the program. The litigation, I mentioned County Council was helpful in the bank agreement, among other things. And so I want to thank County Council and the CEO's office, the board for their prior support, and also staff for the staff effort that has been involved with this program since it started. Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Supervisor Duran, you had?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for County Council. I'm looking over the agreement here, and I see that there's trademarks for protection, but there's protections there for anything that we use, any of our materials. Were you also going to include dispute resolution provisions, meet and confer, those kinds of things? I don't see any of that language in here. Just in case there's, issues that arise under this agreement.
For what was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. You said trademarks and?
Well, there is protection for trademarks, trade names, and copyrights. So I'm assuming that any of the materials that we produce would be protected and would remain ours, as opposed to having any processes being used by the banks themselves in another capacity, correct?
Right. So we would expect to do a certain amount of co-branding,
Okay.
but what we want to make sure is that that's done by agreement, and that anyone, because we also do co-branding with contractors, we don't want third parties taking the Empower brand and the Placer County name and promoting it in ways that we wouldn't approve of.
Okay.
So,
How's the
yes,
market?
there's a process for reviewing that, and has been from the inception of the program.
Has the mark been trademarked or copyrighted?
No, it hasn't. We have looked at that process for doing that, but it has not to date.
Okay, and those were comments. You don't have to answer those.
And and let me add that part of the reason that wasn't pursued is because the status of the program, we didn't want to go to the expense of doing that until we had a better idea of what the final status of the program would be.
Thank you for bringing forward this item. A lot of information. You obviously went above and beyond the call of duty here to give us a thorough report. Thank you.
Supervisor Euler?
Yeah, Janine, a couple questions, beginning back with one of your more recent slides where you're talking about the interest rate. The addition of the processing fee, does that now put us into the category where we have to calculate the APR versus the interest rate? Because now that you have the processing fee, you have additional costs, like commercial lenders, right?
Yes.
Commercial lender, if I go and get a loan through a commercial lender, they have to advertise the rate and the APR, and the APR has to bear the burden of all the costs associated with that loan. Do we have that same burden?
Yes. As I mentioned before, we abide by the Truth in Lending Act,
Okay.
which is a federal act,
Okay.
and it includes APR disclosure. So we have always done that.
Okay.
And we will continue to do so, and the fee would be incorporated in that.
Okay. That may very well feed right into just some things that I think we need to pay attention to. When looking at the commercial application information that you provided us, the 10 applications we've received, you've got 5 of them over 100,000 and 5 of them under 100,000. And for a loan, a commercial loan of over 100,000, or right there, that loan number 5, right at 100,000, $1,600 is 1.6%. But when you get down to that smaller loan of $34,000, $1,600 is 4.7%. And so in terms of rate versus APR, obviously on that one, it's going to be substantially higher than on the $386,000 loan. There won't be as big a spread there. I think it'll be important for us to pay close attention to the applications that we are receiving that move forward for funding and see if that static 1,600 as opposed to a 1.25% fee might not be a better way for us to go on the commercial side, because the 1.25% of your average amount actually gets you about the $1,600. So it doesn't penalize the smaller loans. It encourages the smaller loans to keep coming in if you're at a 1.25 or 1.3. So it just might be something for us to keep track of if we see, because right now we've got half under, half over. If we see all of a sudden those smaller loans drop off and we're not getting those applications, that might be an indication as to why.
Yes.
So.
And the other part of that formula is the interest rate itself. As I mentioned, by having the fee, it gives us more flexibility in adjusting that interest rate because we're not as reliant on it for the cost recovery.
Right, right.
So, yes. And as I mentioned at the last board meeting, and I really wanted the opportunity to mention again, I think it's going to be very, very important that we remain responsive and very nimble in our response, which means that from time to time I will need to come back to the board for various changes. I'm hoping it doesn't take as long as the last meeting or this meeting for your sake and mine. But
I agree, and that's why I wanted to point out some of these things that we might want to be watching for, because it may be that after the first few months of re-engaging the program, especially on the commercial side, on the residential side, you're going to have a similar dynamic. I don't know, when we look at the applications received, the bulk of them fell in that $30,000 to $50,000 range previously. As I indicated in the last meeting, in the last 3 years, the average installation cost has actually dropped down to where you're now sitting closer to $24,000. If you look at the CEC numbers, you're closer to $24,000 is the average residential solar installation. And so if you're taking that, then the $500 is closer to a 2% a fee for processing.
Right, and the table, oh, I can't find my little clicker. The table back here, as I mentioned, we did calculate a percentage down towards the bottom, and we based it on $18,000.
Okay.
So where you see that 4 point, no, it's too small for me to even see without my glasses on.
Got to see it on our screen.
But yeah, you can see it on your
Sure.
pages there, but the 4.37 is based on an $18,000 amount being financed.
All right.
So we are cognizant of that, and again, Riverside had compiled some of this information based on their average, and we went with it, again, to be conservative.
Sure.
So, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question 4 of your survey, you asked the question in regard to new construction utilization. I'm curious, how would this product, I hadn't thought about this product on new construction. Are you saying, take JMC, Moyer here in Roseville, they want to build a subdivision in Roseville. Would Moyer actually be able to apply for a loan for the solar, for the new construction at 123 Main Street that he's building in that subdivision, and have that, basically him get paid out of the proceeds of that loan for putting the solar
Yes,
on?
yeah.
And have it ride on the tax, so it's absolutely zero out of pocket for him, and he's selling the home to the new home buyer with that.
With that encumbrance,
With
that
that
assessment encumbrance.
Okay.
That is the idea.
Okay.
The law, the language in the law is a little bit slippery.
Okay.
Because SB 555, which went into effect a year and a half ago, says that if you structure your program a certain way, that you can use it on new construction. But then it indicates that it has to be, the dwelling has to be occupied.
Right, that's what I was wondering.
So there is some cleanup language on some other assessment and Melrose financing going through. We're doing what we can to see. That language was in there, and then it was taken out because they wanted it to just be a cleanup. They didn't want anything controversial.
Right.
And interestingly enough, a building trades organization opposed it. So we want to go back and have some discussions with them and say, we actually think that this is something that might be able to benefit you, and we want to make sure, just in case there's any confusion, we want to have that discussion with you. So
Right.
we're looking at an opportunity to do exactly what you just said.
Okay. And there is no requirement under the law that upon transfer of the ownership of the property that the debt has to be settled, right? I mean, it can be passed to the new owner.
It can be passed on, but it is subject to the transaction. So if a lender requires it to be paid off, or a buyer, stipulates as part of a negotiation for
Right.
it to be paid off,
Right.
then.
Okay.
But these financing structures are assessment districts and Melrose districts, just like developers are using for other infrastructure in and around their projects. That is the basis of these financings.
Okay. And then what do we have in place right now for program marketing, program how-tos? What do we have anything that's on a public-facing site that today somebody could go and look up? How do I get more information about that?
We have a website.
Okay.
And in the last couple of weeks, we've been working to modify that website to put the the residential information back in.
Okay.
And then the other thing that we have is we have a database of 700 contractors who.
I'm more interested in if tomorrow somebody read Mr. Thompson's story over there and was interested in finding out, do we have already?
We have a website and we have phone number, staff standing by to take your call.
All right, thank you.
So,
All right. Is that it, Mr. Yore?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Supervisor Montgomery has questions.
Janine, thank you. I'm really glad to see how much information and detail is in this report. At our last meeting on this, we all did have a number of questions, all of which I think really got addressed within the information you brought us today. I am a little bit disappointed to look at, and this is not a reflection on you or your staff at all, I'm just personally disappointed to see that there's basically no one above Colfax, apparently, who has applied for this program. And just really following up on Kirk's question about, how are we marketing this and how are we getting this information out to people, want to offer you my help in the east end of the county to really help spread this news. And I think, again, looking at the list of contractors, I don't recognize any from the east end of the county either.
yes.
So just in terms of applications and contractors, my offer is to help you get this information out in any way I can. And I think it's really important, particularly in the east end of the county, to get across the fact that this is not just a solar program, because the east end of the county, because of snow, because of a lot of tree shading issues we have with evergreens, we're probably not as ripe for solar as we are for some of the other opportunities that the program offers. So it's really just a comment and an offer to help make this a more successful program.
Well, that really jumped out at me, and I appreciate that offer. We were up and running for about 14 weeks. We had begun to reach out up there. We had had a couple of seminars. We had been in contact with CAT, the Contractors Association of
Right.
Tahoe Truckee, and then the plug got pulled. Interestingly enough, kind of trivia, solar works really well in cooler temperatures. It's actually more efficient in cooler temperatures. And the other thing that we'll be bringing more information back to the board on, and we're hoping that it will help promote things in the Tahoe areas, that we're working with Grand Lebacan on the potential for a comprehensive retrofit. And the Sierra Business Council has been assisting us with that. And that we have identified as our showcase project for the Better Buildings Challenge. So there's an opportunity for us to even get national attention on that project. But we're hoping, because Grand Lebacan does have a profile in the community up there, that will really help. We have gone through a request for information process with contractors up there. So that is kind of an initial outreach, if you will, because the concept is that any retrofitting that they do will be financed through the Empower program. So it's kind of multifaceted in terms of the Better Buildings Challenge and integrating with Empower Placer.
Absolutely, and I don't disagree at all that it's better in cooler climates. It just doesn't work all that well when it's covered under 4 feet of snow.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Any other comments from board members? Does anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
Authorizing amendment to the Empower loan agreement, the assessment contracts, and other documents related to interest rates.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the items to just discuss. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none. Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
report.
Thank you.
All righty. I'm now going to ask the board's indulgence and move forward with item 7A, the Children's System of Care Annual Report, the Placer County Youth Commission. Mr. Connect. Thanks.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes, members of the board. Richard Connect with the Children's System of Care. I'm pleased this morning to be accompanied by Kara Sutter, one of our uniquely skilled and effective health educators who has championed and shepherded the work of the Youth Commission since its inception a few years ago. And Kara will introduce the Commission's annual report for you.
All right. Consider.
I'm going to turn it quickly over to the youth commissioners.
Microphone.
You need step to, yeah.
I'm going to turn it quickly over to the youth commissions. It's been my pleasure to the commissioners. It's been my pleasure to work with this group for the past 4 years. And I'm going to introduce this year's president, who is leaving with this end of this term, and that's Eunice Kim.
So we have a couple things that we're going to share with you today. We have a video to share and then a couple things that we'd like to personally share with you guys. So first off, my name is Eunice Kim. I was the president for this past year. I'm from District 3 from Newcastle. So, yeah, and then the others.
Hi, I'm Carlos Sagoon. I was representing District 5, and I'm a resident of Auburn, California.
Hello, I'm Dalen Arney. I represent District 5 as well, and I'm a resident of Forest Hill, California. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you, by the way, for having us here. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to speak in front of you and give this report. Thank you for all of the, I think all of you actually, of the supervisors that interacted personally with us, and we had our meetings together. It was really, really cool. And then I would like to actually thank Supervisor Holmes for putting this thing together, for putting Placer County Youth Commission together. It's been a great opportunity for me personally, and I think I speak on the behalf of the entire commission. It's been wonderful, as well as your I'm sorry, Ruth.
Right, Trustee Aide Ruth Alves in the back.
Yes. I really appreciate it. So we have a video version of what you have written down in front of you, the end of your report. It's a little bit more, a little shorter, but I think that we have it ready. Is that correct? All right, cool. So, yeah, as soon as you're ready. So, yes. What? Yes.
Here it comes.
Oh, all right. Okay.
We've got magic powers here. So tell us more.
Yeah, so I thought I was done with school presentations with summer coming up, but I guess not. So I hope you guys are able to take a brief look at our little colorful packet, or more or less smile at our pictures. So a lot of the projects or a lot of the ideas we have thought of this past year or in previous years revolved around a focus of connecting youth, because that seems like a very obvious sort of goal or sort of issue amongst youth, but it's actually a very difficult one, as communication is amongst a large population of youth scattered all over Placer County, which is not that accessible from all the way from up north all the way to Roseville. So our key focus this past year was networking and trying to realize what the problem is with our youth, and how can we get youth connected more with each other, not with just your friends at school. And so we recognize the importance of communication that's involved when putting ideas into practice, such as there are lots of services out there in Placer County for youth, but youth don't know about those services. Then who are those services for now? And so after realizing and recognizing those struggles, we decided earlier this year to do a little research, get people's ideas out, not only ours, but other youth out in the community. So we started with our efforts with the Youth Summit, which we facilitated last summer, which got a group, a small, not a large group, but a decent amount of youth from all over the county, ranging from different youth groups, from school groups as well as not off-campus groups. So we had Hip Hop Congress, which is located in Auburn, which advocates good activities and positive activities through the arts, and then which also ranged from sort of youth groups that involve in efforts to help the disabled as well. So we had a wide range, and we were able to ask a lot of questions and facilitated a small version of what we call the World Cafe, as you saw the little cup, which is sort of like a cafe. In fact, we have round tables where youth get together, and as well as adults, and you discuss about targeted questions, such as what would your ideal city look like, or what would your ideal school look like? And so those questions sooner or later lead on to sort of concerns each youth have. And I think in a general idea, a lot of what comes out from youth are, I wish we had this, or we don't have that, or I wish we could do that. And I think the problem, you could say the problem is maybe the county doesn't have those things, but I think the core problem is, and the easier way to answer the situation, the problem would be that youth don't actually know about the services or know about the entertainment opportunities that are out there. And I think that's honestly true. We could go to Google and type in whatever, but a lot of times you won't get a lot of the underlying services and activities that are provided through your community. And so so this past year has been much more of a research, collecting sort of what's been out there, what exactly are we lacking, and what exactly do we have in order to improve upon. And so hopefully in the upcoming year and the upcoming years, we can apply what we learned this past year and try to think of ways we can get networking more involved among youth. Because obviously at this stage we don't have like business cards to hand to a friend. No one's going to really take that seriously either. So we need to find a way we can get data together in a way where youth can get access to it instead of just adults. So, yep, that's a little bit of an idea what our focus was this past year. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So actually kind of basing off of what Eunice just said, a matter of that kind of networking and getting people together also shares with the awareness of programs. So something that we're going to really try and pursue next year is awareness on mental health, and kind of breaking down the stigma of mental health and what that really means. And we're actually going to have public discussions, both actually in Forest Hill, Auburn, and Lincoln. And actually as Colfax as well. So that will be kind of starting next year, and it'll tie together a lot of the networking we've tried to perpetuate this year, and a lot of the programs we tried to build up this year to try and create a very viable environment for youth in our community to be able to have counseling and awareness of programs, especially around mental health, so we can break down that stigma and hopefully make a better environment for people. So that's what I've got.
All right.
Good morning. Still morning, right?
Yeah.
All right. We're also looking into ways to further build broad internship opportunities for youth in our community. as well as more opportunities for PCYC contribution. The good news is that we have a wonderful new team of commissioners and ambassadors this year, and we had much more interest this year than ever before.
How many applicants did you have this year?
Over 40?
Is that right? Wow.
So,
yeah, the word's getting out.
yes,
Great.
and we are looking forward to having many
So
more
I
ambassadors.
take it you and the other young man are going to be on the commission this year as well?
I don't think so. I did not apply this year,
Oh, you didn't?
as I graduated from Placer High School this year. So,
Oh, Placer, good kid. Where are you off to?
I'm going to do my general ed at Sierra College.
Oh,
and then-
good. That's another good kid. You bet. See, that's what I did. So, good
Yeah.
deal.
But we have a lot of interest as for the ambassador positions, so we're looking forward to having many more ambassadors this year than ever before. So, more people, we can get many more things done.
More involvement. Good, very good. Supervisor Montgomery has.
I had a question since the two of you represent the 5th District.
The best district.
Beg your pardon?
Naturally.
What were you saying? Sorry.
Because it includes the Hillman.
There it is.
So, and the wildfires. Sorry. Have you had many applicants from the far eastern end of the county? And I ask because you raised the issue of mental health,
Right.
and we've had some pretty tough times the last couple of years in the Tahoe-Truckee community with some teen suicides and some other mental health issues that I really think that the Youth Commission could help with. And so I'm always kind of advocating for that far eastern end of the county to be part of this discussion and for you to bring your message there as well. So of those 43 applicants, were there many from the far east?
Well, I mean, I guess Forest Hill counts as the far not really, no. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't
no.
really. No. Well, I mean, as far as I know, I think that I'm from Forest Hill. Do you know if there's anything?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
This year, no. And I think we've had a Tahoe commissioner. It's the issue is that travel. We tried to do the Skype thing and do, and what seems to work best is when we interface with groups that are already in Tahoe, more than having someone come over the hill. And there is the group with Forward and the group with, there's a number of groups that we could interface more with, and we should look into that. It has been difficult, that travel issue. I mean, travel with this age group is really hard just on Western Placer. But ideally, I think there should be their own commission kind of group up there that we're somehow tied with.
Yeah, and I would love to see that. And I actually, just as of yesterday, have instituted quarterly meetings with Superintendent Larry up in Tahoe. And so I think that hopefully will help connect the county a little bit more to the youth in the far end of the 5th District. We do have, I believe, some options through our Community Development Resource Agency for teleconferencing, if that's something that might help bring kids from the far end of the county into the discussion. And so that's, on the table if that's something that would be helpful for you guys.
Right.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments, board members?
Or questions?
Or questions? I have a question for Eunice. Yes, you. Yes. I don't remember how many times you've been. Have you been on the commission for 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
2 years, and you were
Correct.
president last year. And now you're moving on to going to college on the East Coast. Can you tell us where you're going and what?
I'll be heading off to Vermont, to Middlebury College. It's much like Placer County, actually. So yeah, that'll be different. I'll have snow.
Yeah.
But other than that.
And syrup. You'll have some syrup.
And syrup, yes, and syrup. Yeah. Lots of syrup. Lots of syrup, but no mandarins.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll be really sad.
And what are you going to be studying?
I'm interested, I'm actually really torn. maybe I'm bipolar in this aspect, but I want to study international relations, but I'm also interested in going to medical school as well. So I don't know if I'll double major, if that's possible at the institution.
If anybody can do it, I think just seeing you in action, you could probably pull that off.
Hopefully. So anyways,
Well,
yeah,
thank
so
you.
that's what I'll be doing.
Any comments from board members? I just want to thank you, everyone, for what an absolutely outstanding opportunity for young people, and it just makes me feel great to see young people get involved, and to the extent that you do, it's just great. And I think now I have to come down for a photo opportunity. And I'm going to ask my trustee aide to be involved in this as well. She's the one that comes to all the meetings and make sure that they stay on task like me.
Okay, where are we going to stand? In front of the podium? Of course.
Yes, the podium is where to stay.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone on the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in Forest Hill.
Alrighty, now we'll move to the department item number 5, the agricultural crop report. Josh, I want to appreciate you holding off so we can get the youth back to wherever they're going today, down to the river.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present our 2012 Placer County crop report to you. I'm Josh Hunsinger, the Placer County Agricultural Commissioner and Sealer of Weights and Measures. This annual crop report is required by the California Food and Ag Code to be presented to the Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture, but I don't send it to her until I present it to you, so you're the very first to see it. So, I do want to thank all of the growers in Placer County who, without whom I could not compile this report. It's their information which makes the report possible, as well as my Deputy Agricultural Commissioner, Ed King, and our UC Cooperative Extension Farm Advisors, Cindy Fake and Roger Ingram, who are also very instrumental in helping to make this report as good as it can be. It's really good news this year in that our total value for 2012 was $73 million, which is up significantly from the year before at $67.5 million. More significantly, even, this is the first time the total value has been back up over $70 million since the 2005-2006 time frame. And so that's really encouraging to see the overall value of Placer County crops increase. The rice and cattle are our two top crops. They both have had stable, the prices have gone up and down a little bit, but the amount of production and the prices have been both strong and stable for them. So they continue to lead the way. Interestingly, two of our other top crops, while they are still in the top 5 for production, nursery stock and timber continue to languish from the effects of the housing crash that occurred in 2008. Historically, both of those crops were up in the $10 to $15 million range in total value, and ever since the housing crash, they have been down below $10 million. A few years ago, timber was down into the several $100,000 range in total value, down from $13 million a few years before. So it's back up into the $3 million range for timber, but it's not nearly what it used to be. And so that's, interestingly, ag can even benefit from housing booms, so who would have thought? Walnut prices are at an all-time high, and I expect them to continue to increase as we're getting a lot of new acreage of walnuts planted in the county. That's not unique to Placer County. That's a trend we're seeing statewide, that a lot of walnut values are high, and so there's a lot of acreage being planted. Also of note, I'd like to let you know that we recently discovered a whole cache of archived crop reports back into the 40s, and we've worked with Placer County Admin Services to get those scanned in, and we'll have those on our website, I think back to 1941. There's a couple of gaps during World War II where I don't believe they filed a report, but that'll be some really interesting information up on our website for the public to look at and see kind of the historical where Placer County's been agriculturally. I think that'll be really good. You did approve under your consent agenda a new contract for Merlot Marketing to continue the agricultural marketing program for the county. For the most part, our top crops are all characterized as more commodities that are commingled with product from other counties and sold outside of Placer County. So the ag marketing program hasn't had quite as much of a role with our top 5 commodities. However, it's been very involved with more of the direct market, local producers selling it to local consumers and regional consumers. And I'm seeing a lot of positive trends in everything, the classic ones, the mandarins, wine grapes, the vegetables, all the things that are sold at the farmers markets. We're seeing a continued and increasing interest in livestock that's processed locally and sold locally as well. A lot of the grass-fed beef, the lamb, eggs, all of those things. And so the program's really only been running for a little over a year in its current status. However, we're already seeing a lot of positive trends, and I think that will continue. And I look forward to some good hard numbers in sales data that are probably a little hard to pin to any one factor at this time. So thank you again for the opportunity to present this, and look forward to any questions you have.
Any questions from board members? Supervisor Montgomery.
Yeah, Josh, if I understand this correctly, these are production reports, not sales reports.
These are just gross value of production, so they don't take any expenses or value added type. It's just the farm gate value, as we call it, which is just the gross value of the crop itself.
And then doesn't include things like nursery products sales at Home Depot or any of
No,
those
this
sorts
is
of
production. So when we have nursery stock, for instance, that would be the production of nursery stock, growing it up from a seed or a very small plant into a very large plant and then reselling it.
Understood. And I guess what I'm really getting at is I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to have some conversations and do some outreach to some of those larger vendors to see, like Home Depot and places like that, to see if we could sort of boost the sale of placer-grown nursery products.
Yeah.
As really a selling point. I mean, I'm sure there are people who, given a choice between a locally grown plant that we knew was grown here in our climate and something that was grown elsewhere, would probably be willing to pay some sort of premium for the locally grown product.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought. I don't know what the practical implications of that would be. I know the volume of our big box stores is tremendous. We do our nursery stock industry is characterized as a few really big wholesale nurseries that cater mostly to our landscape professional community. They're not involved in retail, and then a number of smaller, more retail-oriented vendors or producers, and I would suspect there might be an opportunity for some of the larger wholesale type producers to
I just
make
me, I
those sales.
just want to push the envelope wherever I can. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Isley's Nursery has some locally grown stock as well.
Absolutely.
Don't forget Isley.
Yeah. There's plenty of good opportunities for local nursery stock.
It was interesting you mentioned that all the archives from back in the 40s, and I just looking here at the pear acreage, 15 acres of pears, and back in those days, I mean, that's what Placer County was known for, was pears. I know my family grew them throughout the 50s until the pear blight.
Yeah, no, I did see the comments from the Ag Commissioner in one of the reports back then that lamented that the pear crop had gone down by several thousand acres year over year at one point.
They were resourceful and started growing peaches and cherries and apples. So, anyhow, very interesting. Any other comments, board members? Anybody in the audience want to talk about agriculture? Thank you.
Thank you,
Josh. Appreciate it. We'll move now to item 6, Facility Services, 6A, Property Management, Placer County Fairgrounds Assessment Consultant.
Ms. Rideout.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mark Rideout, Facility Services. Pleased to be here today to present this item, which we believe will result in a really solid analysis of the fairgrounds and the fair that we can use into the future as we evaluate this resource that, well, the fair has been operating at the fairgrounds in Roseville since the 1930s, and what we're looking at today is recommending RCH Group for a $194,796,000 contract, which will do a comprehensive analysis of the fiscal opportunities and constraints, partnership opportunities, working through procurement services, the RFP process. Really was an interesting opportunity for me to learn about this type of work. And through developing the RFP, interviewing the different individuals that came forward, we selected RCH because they're a multidisciplinary firm. They've worked with Gruen & Gruen and Andy Plesha since 2005. They've been involved in the Cal Expo project in a couple different iterations. They have direct experience with the Solano County Fair, working with the city of Vallejo, that we feel is really unique and will give us a good opportunity to look at the visioning, reaching out to the community. Through the contract that we've developed with them, there's going to be a weeknight workshop with the residents in the area. We're going to meet with the city. We've talked with various individuals in agricultural and the 4-H groups and those sort of people. So looking at this broad visioning process, the solid financial analysis and demand studies that RCH, Gruen & Gruen, and Plesha are going to put together. And the intriguing thing for me is really looking at that fiscal model and that business model and coming up with what's going to be a self-sustaining community resource that can operate well out into the future, looking at the mix of different activities and developing 3 different conceptual site plans that we can then go into a future phase and look at, does it stay at this site? What would that look like? Does it go elsewhere? What would that look like? And using these also to put information into the community plan so there are opportunities to go out into the future. And again, it was just a really interesting process to see that, yes, we can have a really solid analysis that will be useful to your board. We're looking at coming back in March of next year, kind of at the end of this process, to present to you what we've come up with. The other interesting part, too, is the idea of speaking with the universities and the local school districts to see if there are sort of out-of-the-box opportunities to really integrate this into the community and make it, again, this viable community resource. So that's kind of brief. Procurement Services, John Manning was really helpful with the process. Can't thank him enough for it. Dave Cook of RCH Group is here if there are questions for either of them or myself. Please entertain them. And certainly look forward to working with you as we go through this process. We're ready to kick it off and get started.
Okay. Supervisor Euler has questions, comments?
More 2 comments as opposed to questions necessarily. Looking at the contract itself on page 4 of 30, under the business plan preparation, there's direction that the team members should consult and meet with representatives of Placer County Facility Services Department and other county staff as deemed necessary to review at a minimum the following. I would like at least, I should say I'm willing, I don't want to encumber my colleagues, but I would like the opportunity to meet with the team as well and express my thoughts about the fair, its current operations, possible future amenities, those kinds of things. I didn't see anywhere in the contract where it was directed that they might want to consult with board members about our thoughts and our directions. So if that's a possibility, I'd love the opportunity to meet with the team and just kind of share my thoughts, and to the extent that any of my colleagues want to do likewise, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll reach out to all of you.
And then I see where on the stakeholder advisory group you designate certain members of the stakeholder advisory group, and you include a representative from the Fair Board, which is the Fair Association Board, which is good, but I didn't see anywhere in the contract where it was directed that the consultants should actually meet with the entire board for a meeting to discuss kind of the entire board's thoughts. And I think having at least one meeting with the entire board of the Fair Association would probably be a good thing to get that collective groupthink.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And through this and negotiating with RCH, it was a really iterative process, and we left a lot of flexibility in the contract, and there's some additional services available, so that's a great suggestion.
That was all I had. Thank you.
Supervisor Durant.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this forward. I know there's a lot of opportunity here to do some really good things and to get some really good data. I would like to hear from Mr. Cook concerning the questions that Supervisor Euler brought up and how he envisions this process moving forward from a consulting standpoint.
Morning, Mr. Cook.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes and members of the board. Thanks for the opportunity to engage in this work. We're excited. I think this board knows me and my firm a little bit more for conventional development. We have a little joke around the office that we all do a little bit of fair work as well, or we do some good work for fairs. In regard to Supervisor Euler's comments, and as Mark pointed out, we do have a fair amount of flexibility. And in terms of any participation that this body would like to engage in, we welcome that. In terms of meeting with the entire board, I think that's a great idea, so we get that input from them in the context of their organization. Essentially, the process is such that we will take some of those entities who are listed in the contract, submit that formally to Mark and his staff, and confirm who exactly is it that we're going to have on there, if there's anybody else that we've left out. So what's in the contract is really meant as a starting point, an example of those that we anticipate being engaged in this. Once the proposed stakeholders are identified and confirmed by DFS, then we will actually start scheduling those meetings and reach out. Along with that, we will be reaching out to the city of Roseville, and as Mark mentioned, we will have a neighborhood meeting with them, primarily to let them know what we anticipate the process to be, get the concerns from them, and then move forward. But most of this is really the participants, the stakeholders at the fair, to help us develop the business models and figure out what are the development designs, the programming that might best suit the viability of the fair going forward. So we're looking forward to this. My role will primarily be in the public outreach. I don't have the amount of experience in the actual fair portion as the R and RCH, Robert Johnson, but I will be working closely with him and the other team members that Mark referred to, Andy and Aaron, who we've worked with on numerous other county fairs throughout the state. So Supervisor Duran, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I would also include the city of Lincoln. They've shown some interest as well, and as you know, and as everybody knows, we've been talking to them about possibilities. They may have some ideas on a concept as well. So,
okay, good idea. Any other questions?
Any other questions from board members? See none? Thank you, Mr. Cook. Anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? Bring it back to the board. It's been moved and seconded to approve the property management with Placer County Fairgrounds Assistant Consultant, RCH Group. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move back to adult system of care. I believe we're down to item 7C. Ms. Baumann.
Good morning again, Maureen Baumann, Adult System of Care. So 7C for your consideration is an amendment to the revenue agreement with the Department of Alcohol and Drug Programs and the Department of Healthcare Services. This amendment extends their contract with us through 13-14 for an additional $2,400,000.
with no net county cost. It's for the provision of mandated drug and alcohol treatment services and prevention programs. The request is to approve the contract's amended total to $10 million, almost $11 million, over now a 4-year term instead of a 3-year term, and to authorize the chair to sign subsequent agreements. So briefly, the California Department of Alcohol and Drug Programs has been in process of transitioning to Department of Health Services, and that will happen as of July 1st, this current fiscal year. The Drug Medi-Cal program already transferred to Department of Healthcare Services, so this is really the vehicle that the state uses to send federal dollars from the state, pass through the state to the counties. And so it's a vehicle we use to get those federal block grant dollars, as well as to get the reimbursement for the federal share of Drug Medi-Cal. Other funding that's been typically in this contract has already been realigned to the county, so it's a change the way our business works. And the amendment, again, specifically extends the time for 1 additional year, increases the amount for the 12-13 year, and adds new funding for 13-14. So, and a contingency, so it's, again, moving, and we have both ADP and DHCS because we know we're moving to do HCS. So when they approved it, they put both organizations in place. Just briefly, Placer County has a continuum of care for alcohol and drug services. One of the things we implemented in the last couple of years that we're thinking works really, really well is a screening clinic, so people don't have to wait and make an appointment for drug and alcohol services, which is sometimes counterindicated. People just show up. We've had, in the last year, 600 people come to the screening clinic to get assessed, to get information. They can just drop in. It's 3 days a week. It's worked out really, really well, and we do either further assessments or refer them directly to treatment. Just a count, we had 1,125 people participate in treatment programs, drug and alcohol treatment programs in the last year. That doesn't include the DUI, but that's just the actual treatment programs. So with that, we would just mention that this is 100% funded with federal dollars, the amendment. It's an increase of $45,000 for 12-13 and $2,300,000 for 13-14. The amount is included in the 13-14 budget. There is no county general fund, but there is a match requirement that we use with substance abuse penalties and fines in the amount of almost $61,000 that also is budgeted for 13-14. With that, I'd answer any questions and recommend approval.
Any questions from board members? And moved and seconded for the item. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll move to item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7D, Children's System of Care Contract, Mental Health America of Northern California. Mr. Connect.
Good morning again, Chairman and board members. As contract renewal season proceeds and winds down, CSOC is pleased to present a number of renewal agreements for your consideration today. The Mental Health America contract is the first of those. We appreciate your support for these items this morning. CSOC has been a pioneer in California in employing people with lived experience to provide family and youth partnership and support services. Parents of former foster youth or others in the children's system of care or adults who have previously been served by the Mental Health Authority provide paraprofessional supports to families and individuals receiving probation, mental health, or child welfare services. These unique partnerships are a hallmark of the nationally regarded wraparound approach and is supported by the county's SMART Policy Board, including our judges and our probation authority. Total expenditures of $562,355 are included in the department's proposed budget for 13-14. This contract is funded by state funds and no county general funds are required. I'd be happy to take any questions and urge your support.
Questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the item. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll move to item 7E, Children's System of Care Contracts, Umbrella Group Homes and Providers.
Thank you. The adult and children's systems of care maintain contracted relationships with networks of residential care and outpatient providers of mental health services in order to meet state and federal mandates. These two umbrella contracts together facilitate the delivery of mental health and behavioral care for nearly 600 residents per year. These services lead to better outcomes for individuals and families and at lower cost to the county. They help children remain in home and school and assist adults to avoid hospitalization. The residential group home umbrella requires $76,000 in county general funds, leveraging $509,000 in federal and state money. The outpatient provider network umbrella requires $48,000 in local funding to access $552,000 in other funds. These umbrella contracts usage remains near historic lows, having been reduced nearly 40% since 2007. I recommend your board's approval of the umbrella contracts with residential group home providers and the network provider umbrellas under item 7E, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, I'll ask for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7E, 1A and B. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll move to item 7F, Children's System of Care Contracts Mental Health Services Act.
Thank you. The item under F is a proposal to use the state's Proposition 63 funding to serve our mentally challenged individuals and prevent the need for deeper end resources. Thousands of people in Placer County each year get help for their challenges through their natural networks of family, friends, faith groups, or other community connections, and as a result generally do not require county services. Among the most celebrated MHSA programs are the mini grants administered by our two community foundations, which provide innovative community-based supports. Last year, more than 35 nonprofits and faith-based organizations were supported via these competitively awarded dollars. These mini grants further build the community's capacity to meet the needs of community members in the most accessible and destigmatizing manner possible, last year reaching nearly 10,000 residents. These 6 contract renewals will assure uninterrupted supports and services for many of our most vulnerable neighbors and friends. Of the $953,638 in expenditures in this request, $573,638 are in the department's fiscal year proposed budget, and the remaining $380,000 will be requested in the department's final budget adjustments later this summer. These services are fully funded by state funds, and no county general funds are required.
Questions, comments? Seeing none?
Yeah, just a quick question, Chairman. Mr. Connect, what did the funding go up? Did it go down? What was the hit on that?
Yeah, the additional resources here are due to updated projections from the state relative to Proposition 63.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve items 7F, 1A, B, C, D, E, and F. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we move to item 7G.
Thank you. EMQ Families First delivers a combination of intensive in-home counseling, crisis stabilization, and mental health services to children and families around the state, and is celebrated as pioneers in the delivery of community evidence-based mental health services. Up to 40 children this year will receive state-mandated intensive mental health services and avoid out-of-home or hospital care. The total contract amount is unchanged from the prior 2-year term. This contract is funded through $517,000 in federal and state funding and $71,000 in county general funds. Of this amount, $294,000 is included in the current year proposed budget. The balance will be included in the following year's requested budget. I'd be happy to take any questions and urge your approval.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve item 7G. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, move on to 7H.
Thank you. Sierra Mental Wellness Group has for many years delivered much of the county's mandated mental health and emergency crisis services. This contract renewal provides out-client mental health services to youth and adults in Placer. The services provided under this agreement include anger management classes, counseling, parent training, and domestic violence treatment programs, the bulk of which are mandated by court or legal action. In fiscal year 12-13, Sierra Mental Wellness Group served 320 clients, often preventing the need for hospitalization or other more expensive services, and helping families avoid the stigma which can result from residential or group home care. This agreement, totaling $920,166, is included in the department's fiscal year proposed budget in 13-14. It will be funded with $716,213 federal and state dollars and a required $203,952 in county general funds. Be happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Moved and seconded to approve item 7H. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Proposals. Now we'll move to item 8, Public Works First Amendment to Tier 2 Development Fee Program Memorandum of Agreement. Mr. Ken Grimm.
Good morning still. Chairman, board members, my name's Ken Grimm with the Department of Public Works. Today we're asking you to approve a First Amendment for a memorandum of agreement with the cities of Roseville, Rockland, and Lincoln, as well as the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority, to allow some deferrals of the Tier 2 transportation development fee. In 2009, the county and the cities approved the Tier 2 development fee to raise approximately $500 million to construct the Placer Parkway, a new multi-lane roadway between Highway 70 and Highway 65. During the economic downturn, we've been looking to ways to stimulate activities while still trying to provide the high-quality infrastructure we're used to having. Deferrals of some of those fees came up as a very logical alternative to stimulate that activity. We still ultimately get the facility we want. We're just going to get it a little bit later than what we originally intended. The proposal would allow an applicant to defer a portion of the Tier 2 fee for as long as 30 years, and the program is capped at a maximum of $29 million. So $500 million program, only up to $29 million can actually be deferred into the future. Assuming we eventually have a development rate of about 1,000 units per year, which is not at all uncommon, that means we're probably delaying portions of the parkway by about 5 to 6 years. Not a significant increase in the time frame. County projects that are subject to the fee include Placer Vineyards as well as Regional University. County participation, well, first off, this agreement allows any of the agencies to participate in a fee deferral program. It does not mandate that they do so. So participation in the program is still at your discretion for any individual project. What we would assume as a project that wants to take advantage of the deferral program would have to make a proposal to say how will they ensure and give us the assurances we need that the deferred fees will eventually be paid. It's important to note the one responsibility, if we ever do allow development within the county to use that, is the agency becomes the ultimate guarantor to make sure that those fees are repaid. So it is in our best interest to ensure that whoever wants to participate, there are agreements in place necessary to make sure that the fees are being paid. With that, we do request or recommend that you do adopt the resolution that does approve the First Amendment to the Memorandum of Agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? It's been moved and seconded to approve item 8, Public Works First Amendment to Tier 2 Development Fee Program Memorandum of Agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion has passed. Congratulations. Now, Mr. County Counsel.
The board will now adjourn to closed session where they will meet as the Placer County In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority for a discussion with its labor negotiators. And after adjourning as the public authority, they will re-adjourn and conduct a performance evaluation for the county council.
All right.
The board has returned from closed session where they met as, The board has returned from closed session where they met as the Placer County In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority to meet with their labor negotiators. They heard a report from their labor negotiation team and gave direction. The board then adjourned as the board again to conduct a performance evaluation for the county council. No action was taken.
All right. That concludes our meeting.